New Zealand. Let's go.
Coming up, guest co-host Cam Rowston steps in to break down Dan Hooker's fight and more.
Arman Tsarukyan is the #1 contender for a reason.
New Zealand lightweight Dominic Reed joins the show ahead of King in the Ring this weekend. But first, we look back at the UFC landing in Qatar for the very first time. Kia rite mai.
Live from the sold-out APHA Arena in Doha. The trapdoor is opening. Big squeeze, he's out. He's done. Guess who's back? Sergey split back to the left. No way. Wow, this could be it. It's ready and low. It's a thunderbolt in the right hand. Wow. Cortez Acosta on short notice. He goes up the middle this time. Seconds. Dan, the hangman Hooker, he has more trips in the octagon than anyone else tonight, but gold has so far eluded him. He sees Arman Tsarukyan, the #1 ranked guy, as his ticket to the belt.
Whoa. Under the back. Good job from Tsarukyan. He's got to watch his neck here in the guillotine.
Here comes the hangman.
Passes guard. Nicely done.
Dan's got to use the scramble. Beautiful job from Tsarukyan.
Snatch that.
Wow. No, they controlled it up well enough.
Oh, this is trouble.
Looks like he's coming, Barry.
And he submits the hangman. Tsarukyan is back in contention.
Kia ora e te iwi, no mai hara mai ki UFC on Sky, ko Eventfinda huni a tōku ingoa. Welcome on into UFC on Sky this week. My co-host, my guest co-host this week, UFC Middleweight Cam Rowston. Kia ora e wa.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me on.
You are very welcome. Look, how have you been? Last time we saw you in action in Perth, won in fabulous fashion, by the way. How have you been since then?
Life has been pretty good. Not much has changed, really. Got a bit more time now. Working a little bit less, but that means I get to work more in the gym and helping the boys out, and it's been fun. It's been a good roller coaster, and now it's just back to the grind in the gym.
How long does it take for you to be like, okay, itch your feet again, want to get back in there, especially after a win like that?
Oh, it was like a couple of days after that one. I was like, I want to go again. That felt really good. But I know to get that feeling, you got to go through about 8 or 9 weeks of hell in training camp. So, yeah, I'm ready to go now.
So can you tell us anything? What's on the horizon for Cam Rowston? Preparing for anything big? I'm obviously thinking, yeah.
I've just been told be ready for early next year. There's a possibility of the UFC going back to Australia at some point, and yeah, you know, this region's so strong, so they're just going to basically do a whole Anzac versus the world card, I think.
I love that, because boy, oh boy, have the Anzacs had a year this year when we think about the title fights that have been involved. Everyone's been competing this year. The debutants, including yourself, on the UFC main stage is exciting. And I just want to talk to you a bit about that when we're over in Perth, and that was basically Anzacs against the world too when you think about it, and all but one winning their fights. I mean, how exciting is it for the region to be getting not just results like this, but now cards working around our fighters because they're just that blooming good?
Well, it's really exciting because we have like such a strong bond when we all get together. Usually on the regional scene, it's like, oh, that gym there, like don't talk to him, I'm fighting that guy. But then you see all those guys in the regional scene, and now instead of like looking at each other and giving each other like the evil eye, we're all shaking hands, hugging and stuff like that. So it's a really good, just like good mateship when we get on all these cards together. And like secondly, it's a 3-hour flight away. For some guys, it's only a 1-hour flight away. So it's perfect.
And I mean, speaking of Anzac, you're from Australia originally, obviously, but you found home here in New Zealand. How do you stand in the allegiances?
Yeah, there's no allegiances. When we're all in the same trench, and we're all facing the same enemy. We're all one.
I love that, and a very diplomatic answer. Look, let's take a look at another Anzac that was in action over the weekend. Dan Hooker over at UFC Qatar wasn't able to get the job done against Arman Tsarukyan. Talk to us, Cam, what you made of this fight, because, I mean, out the gates, Dan looked pretty good. At the start of the fight, Dan looked phenomenal. He was, I was like, oh, we could be in for one of those Dan Hooker classic 5-round scraps, or he's just going to catch Arman on the way in. But Arman Tsarukyan is the #1 contender for a reason, and man, he's so good. Yeah,
he's so good.
Yeah, we spoke a lot last week and the weeks building up to this fight about how much of a well-rounded fighter he is, and he spoke to us on the show last week talking about how he wanted to use his wrestling, how he wanted to use that strength. He said, Dan Hooker wants to kill me on the feet, I want to kill him on the ground, and that was pretty much how they went into that fight. Well and truly, talk to us about Dan's preparation for this fight, because obviously you're around him as he's preparing. I mean, it's so much different when you're going into the gym to train as opposed to, okay, the Cap is getting ready for a UFC fight.
Yeah, just watching his prep from the sides, it was very meticulous. Like he didn't miss a session. I saw him in the gym every day. Like he was in there before me each morning, and in the evenings as well. He was staying, doing a whole lot of extras, drilling positions he got caught in. He would ask questions and work his way out of that. And he was hitting all his conditioning sessions. And like the last training he did before he flew out, we all thought like, damn, this might be the best Dan Hooker we've ever seen. Yeah,
and I don't think you were wrong either. It just wasn't obviously his night. On the night, well, for us, our morning, in the morning. You told me an interesting story about how you watch these fights, Cam. Tell us more.
Yeah, I was on my way back from Melbourne after cornering a couple of the boys on Hex, and it was probably, maybe like 8:30 or 7:30, whatever time it was, and I used the aeroplane Wi-Fi to get my fight pass up. Had it going at about 40p on the screen. It was a couple pixels, but I had it going live, and me and Talo were sitting there watching it, put the phone on the back of the headrest, and we were just swearing our heads off and throwing the arms up in the air. Very disturbing for some of the passengers on the plane.
I'm sure it was. They'd be like, well, some of them will be like, what the heck is going on? And the others are like, show me, I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's going on. How do you feel in those situations, Cam? Because I know for us, when we're working with Dan, we feel an invested interest because, we have this relationship with him now. How do you feel as a training partner, as a teammate, probably a friend as well, watching, when your teammates go to war? What is that feeling like?
It feels like I'm fighting. It feels similar to that, because you know how much is on the line for these guys. You know how hard they've sweated and they've bled for this, and it's when they win, sometimes you're more excited than they are and happier they are, and then when they lose, sometimes you're just as sad or you're sadder, because it's like you feel the same emotions almost that they do. I'm assuming that's what Dan felt.
Yeah, true. Well, he was over there in Perth. We saw him there when you were fighting as well. So it's always been that, that real team camaraderie thing. So you wouldn't blame me for feeling a little bit emotional. Moving on from UFC Qatar, though, what would be next for Dan Hooker, do you reckon? What does his future look like? Because, there's still some fights there for him. BMF chipping away in the background. Fans have been wanting to see him fight for that belt for a while. Where do you see Dan going after this?
I think it was maybe a couple hours afterwards. He put up a little video and he was saying, if I can't have nice things, no one else can. And I'm going to ruin every other potential title contender's chance at a title. So I see him just destroying some of these young blokes coming up. He's got, same as the gym, he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder when these young guys come in and test him. And I think he's going to carry that over into the cage and just absolutely blow the jaw off some of these young blokes coming in who think they can handle the hangman. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember, I think maybe it was a couple of years ago now, actually when you came on the show last time, when we were on the old set, when Dan was talking about a possible fight against Renato Moicano and saying how much of a fit that would be. That kind of went off the radar for a little while, but it turns out that might be a go for him.
Yeah, I did see a little tweet from him saying, Moicano, let's have it. So that would be great. There's two guys who are kind of built similarly. They're both been in the UFC for so long, just like grew up in the UFC, and that would be a fantastic fight.
I can only imagine what the build up to that fight would be like in a press conference with two guys who really like to talk. That'll be exciting indeed. Looking ahead, UFC 323 Cam, the last pay-per-view event of the year. It is actually crazy to think that it's the last pay-per-view event of the year because Christmas is just around the corner. But December the 7th, Merab Dvalishvili up against Petr Yan, Pantoja up against Van. Two great fights. The little guys in action for this one. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Merab and Petr. Obviously, Merab has been on quite the title run.
Merab has what they call a spastic pace. He's ridiculous. Like he's called the machine for a reason. It's a contrasting style to Petr Yan, who has like much more of a calculated, settled, I guess you could call it, pace and style. So I don't know what's going to happen. Will Yan thrive in the chaos, or will Merab just absolutely just blow him out of the water? But I think it's a good fight, and I'm going to pick Merab on this one.
Yeah, it's hard to look past Merab, especially with the success that he's been having, right? But I also think in the bantamweight division, sometimes we're like, oh, Merab, he's going through everybody. Who will be next? But when they name that next person, you're just like, oh, yeah, that guy, you know, the style there, that could get the better of Merab. What do you think the trick is going to be here for Petr Yan? Obviously, Merab loves to take these fights deep into the later rounds.
I think for Petr Yan, the trick is just going to be not letting himself get backed up against the cage. That's where Merab seems to do most of his best work, just grinding guys down and just pulling the legs out from underneath them or tripping them or just squeezing their body to the ground. Petr Yan has proven that he does quite well when he holds the middle of the cage, as long as he doesn't knee someone in the head when they're on the ground, kick them in the head.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, discipline. And of course, the co-main event, the flyweight bout, is once again up for grabs. Pantoja has also been quite busy. Remember, we were over in Las Vegas for him and Kai Kara-France earlier this year. But this fight, very interesting. Van bursted onto the scene, taking on a top 10 against Brandon Royval and got the title shot. What are your thoughts on this? Because it's quite exciting when you haven't seen too much of the youngster.
I think the flyweight division is kind of heading towards the position it was in with Demetrius Johnson. You know, Pantoja's, he's doing really well as a champion, and he's had a lot of experience, and I think that's just going to be too much for Van. Yeah, they're just picking, not just picking, but you know, they're giving Pantoja basically anyone who in the flyweight division who's beating these top guys, whether they start as like a number 10 contender or like quite low on the ranks, and then if they beat a top guy, then they can jump straight into a title shot. So I think Pantoja is just going to be too much. It's kind of similar to the fight he had with, I believe it was he came over from Ryzen, the Japanese.
That's right.
Yeah,
yep. Kai Asakura.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And look, when we watch Pantoja, I mean, you know what you kind of know what you're going to get when it comes to him and what he brings, and he has that, you know, real forward pressure, and he is very durable. He can easily go those 5 rounds as well. But I think what impresses me the most is that he seems to elevate his game with every fight. You know, I hate thinking about that result against Qatar, I really do. But that is the best Pantoja I feel we have ever seen, to make that level up like that. Talk to us about what it takes to be able to do that. I mean, he's not the youngest of fighters either, and still being able to up his game every single time.
think he's just he's training quite smart in between fights. You know, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's doing a lot of upskilling. Like, that's one of the martial arts where you can try to do a lot of hours on the mats and not break down your body heap. So, you know, we're seeing Pantoja getting a lot of submission wins and just out grappling the hell out of guys really in his fights. So I feel like he's putting a lot of hours in on the mats in between fights and taking care of his body, and then just because he's been in the game so long, he knows when to peak and he knows how to train.
True professional, all right. And the one thing I really don't like him, he's a really nice guy. He's a lovely guy too, damn it. So interesting, whānau. This next weekend, December the 7th, UFC 323, you can book that pay-per-view on Sky Sport Now or Sky Arena, all the action taking place over there in America, last pay-per-view of the year, so do not miss that. There's also one more card, ESPN, the week after that. We're talking about flyweights. Brandon Royval, he will be up against Manel Cape, so don't miss that one as well, December 11th. But Cam Rowston, exciting news happening on the ground, on grassroots. King in the ring, here we go. Oh, love the hat. This is an arena you are very accustomed to, King in the Ring, obviously New Zealand's premier kickboxing show here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and it's a battle of the lightweights. Your thoughts on this one? I believe you're in action, you on the call this weekend?
Yeah, me and Lightning Mike will be on the panel, and Nyreen will be, I think she'll be calling the action in the ring as well. So
very cool.
Yeah, we've got a good team going in there. This is a good division. It was dominated by Nikota for the last 3 times that they had it, and no one could really touch him in those. He did face a little bit of adversity, but like apart from that, he just overwhelmed guys and dominated them. And that's crazy to think that he won 9 fights in King in the Ring doing that.
Crazy.
Yeah. So you know, it could be anyone's go this time, but he does have there is one of his old teammates and one of his old opponents, Dominic Reed, in there, who's coming in as a favourite. There's, I think my money on a dark horse would be Zion Perry. The guy's had about 8 or 9 fights in about a year, the last year or so. So he's got a lot of momentum behind him.
Amazing, yeah. And look, talk to us about this King in the Ring format. We did mention this when Blood Diamond came in and had a wee chat with us, but you're seeing 8 men up here. This is not a card. These are all men that could potentially fight more than once in one evening. And as I mentioned, you know this format very, very well. So talk to us about, when you tune into King in the Ring, what format you can expect to see.
Yeah, there's going to be the quarterfinals. I think they kick off the night with either the reserve fight or the quarterfinals, and then there's no pacing yourself in those fights for these boys. You know, you can't think, oh, I'll save my legs till I get to the semis. There might not be a semi, so these guys go in there and they just go 100% in the first fight, hope it holds out, get a little bit of a rest, not much, and then they do the semis. And again, there's no holding back. You gotta use all your weapons, and then if they get to the final, if they're lucky enough to get to the final, it's all mental from there. The legs will be beat up, the ribs, maybe the chin will be a little bit sore as well, but it's all go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fighting for one night, but the one thing you can rely on with the lightweights, they will bring the energy. Cam, if these guys ever came up to you and asked you for a bit of advice, you being a former champion, obviously, what advice would you give to fighters like this who are going to be competing in King in the Ring?
Well, if they ask me for advice before their training camp, I would tell them to spar with everyone, because you never know who you're going to fight. You got to be ready to fight all styles. And if they were asking me maybe the night before or at weigh-ins, I would say just don't leave anything on the table. You got to treat each fight like it's the last, because it could be the last.
Well, you've experienced these highs. You've experienced, a bout in King in the Ring. You've now experienced, a high in the UFC with a great win there. Talk to us about what that feeling is like with King in the Ring. We know that King in the Ring has so much history here in New Zealand and has bred some of the best fighters New Zealand has ever seen. What did it feel like to not only, fight once, twice, 3 times, to win that bout knowing, the history of what this event is?
Yeah, winning the King in the Ring, like, I think I got a stoppage in the final. That was a great feeling. I collapsed to my knees. It was a lot of relief and a lot of joy. It was a very, very emotional moment. it's like one of the biggest titles you can win in this region in terms of kickboxing, you know, and it's for one of these guys who's going to win it, they're going to solidify themselves as like the next big thing coming out of this area.
Nice. And talk to us. How are you going with the research and preparing for what you need to do? King in the ring this weekend, behind or in front of the camera instead of in the cage.
Well, I asked three-time King in the Ring lightweight champion Dakota, and he was a little bit of help to me, not too much help. I asked him who he thinks going to take it, and he said his old teammate and his old opponent, Dominic Reed, and I said, who are the other blokes on there? And he said, doesn't matter. I said, oh, that's not very fair.
Well, speaking of Dominic Reed, we did have a wee cordial with him, so let's see if he feels the same way. We were just talking about it. You're down to the wire now. What does the rest of the week look for you? You still down in Christchurch?
Yeah, still in Christchurch. I'll be in Auckland on Friday morning. Pretty chill. I just have to make weight. I've got nothing really on. I'm just chilling.
And talk to us about preparations, bro. Like, we talk about fighters getting ready for fights. Obviously, getting ready for a King in the Ring 8-man elimination series is a little bit different. It requires a little bit more. So, you know, how do you best prepare for a tournament like this?
We just try to train hard, focusing on like some skill sets. Like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just hard work, basically, yeah.
And your thoughts on the field? Obviously, when you get up to Auckland, you do the draw, then you know who you're going to be facing and all of that sort of thing. But your thoughts on, you know, the rest of the lightweights that'll be competing as well?
Yeah, I think they're good. I think, yeah, it'll be interesting. We're just looking forward to getting it done. I think, it's like we know some of them are going to be tough. We know.
But obviously for you, you're like the veteran of the group. I feel like you're still so young, but you're the veteran of the group, having done this competition, you know, more than once, making it to the finals. Do you feel like that's an advantage for you?
I feel like it will be an advantage because it is pretty hard to do that. But I mean, I've had like heaps of fights. So yeah, I suppose like all of the experience in my fighting career will play a role in it, not just the King in the Ring ones, but yeah, it's all part of it, eh?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much like old and cool history that comes with King in the Ring when we think about, you know, the fighters that have come out of King in the Ring, you know, those before you and those that are still coming through, like yourself. So your thoughts on King in the Ring and, you know, what this tournament does for combat sport in New Zealand?
I like it. I think it's great for the sport of the fighting in New Zealand. It just really like shows like who is like up at the top and who is like the best, you know, like, yeah, everyone, you know, like Dan Hooker, Israel Adesanya, yeah, Cam Rowston, like you were saying, and yeah, just all of these top guys. Carlos Ulberg is there as well. Nico Kingi, the brother, yeah, you know, like it just Alexis Terapisos is one as well. It just keeps going, you know, like you remember these names, you know.
Well, how closely were you watching these guys when you were coming through?
I wasn't really like following them hard out, but I definitely was in the loop, you know, like I would, yeah, especially Izzy. I like Izzy a lot.
You mentioned Nico Kingi. Obviously, he's won the tournament a few times. You guys used to train together. There's a lot of, I don't know, would you call it frenemies? When it comes to you two brothers at the end of the day, I'm sure. Yeah. But you know, you've come through the ranks and you know, you've made it to the finals fighting him in the past. So talk about those past experiences.
You know, like between me and Nico, it's not even like frenemies, because I don't know. We wouldn't just train together, you know. We'd be hanging out together as well. So like there would be heaps of times that we would just be like going out, go chilling. We'd go do whatever, you know. So I don't know, when you have to fight someone like that, it's like pretty unpleasant experience for both parties. But yeah, he knows that and we know that. And yeah, it's all good.
And obviously, fighting down there in Christchurch, training out of, you know, such a great gym with the Liga family down there. You know, talk to us about what's popping in the Christchurch scene at the moment. A lot of people look to combat sport and think about that Auckland market, but there's a lot happening in Christchurch.
I train under Wayne Vaenga, who is like kind of like second generation. So then there was Philip Lamb. That was like the OG. That's like the top guy would be Philip Lamb, and then down from that would have been Wayne Vaenga. And so I train under him. And then of course there's like a long tree of people, you know, if going from there and then like I'm like me and Nikota would be like further down the list. We have a good coach called Ollie Levere is there. I really like him. He's been helping me with my skill sets for this camp, so it's been good. And Wayne has been helping me too, of course.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, when we think about that Liga lineage in New Zealand, you mentioned Lamb, and we just saw Lolo Heimuli, you know, Balmoral Liga, just had his movie and his biopic. Wayne was in that as well. So yeah, very rich history, and it's exciting, you know, when these young fighters are still producing these really nice young fighters as well. Look, for this weekend though, bro, how do you get that $10,000 finally in your pocket?
Just smash them, man. We'll just have to go hard, yeah. We're just gonna go hard. Yeah, and try and enjoy it as well, you know? Like, if it gets hard, try and enjoy the hard, you know? It's all good.
I love it. I'm excited to see you in action, bro. All the very best this weekend. We do want to see that check in your hand by the end of the night.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, Dominic, thank you so much for those words, and all the very best to you and all the fighters this weekend at King in the Ring. And Cam, good luck to you too. Back in the comms box.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Whānau, you can catch King in the Ring this weekend at Eventfinda Stadium. Buy a ticket, go down there, watch it live and support your local talent. Also, another reminder, UFC 323 next weekend, December the 7th on pay-per-view. Book now on Sky Sport Now or Sky Arena. Thank you for joining us. Hei kōna mo.
The undisputed